One person wrote just 5 words to get out of jury duty. I don't believe in laws. Another claimed they were legally dead on Instagram. And no, these aren't pranks. These are real submissions pulled from court records across the US last year. Let's count down the 49 dumbest jury duty excuses of all time. And trust me, it only gets dumber. 1. A grumpy middle-aged man walked into the courthouse clutching his summons like it was a piece of dirty trash. He looked the clerk dead in the eye and refused to fill out the paperwork properly. Instead of checking boxes, he just grabbed a thick black marker. He scribbled 5 words across the entire page in giant capital letters. I don't believe in laws. The clerk stared at him in total confusion while he adjusted his tinfoil hat. He explained that gravity is a suggestion and traffic lights are government oppression. The judge actually laughed out loud before dismissing him immediately. It was the most insane attempt at freedom anyone had ever seen. 2. A trendy young woman in oversized sunglasses marched into the jury selection room while live streaming on her phone. She told the judge she could not possibly serve on a jury because it would destroy her aesthetic. She claimed that sitting in a drab beige courtroom conflicts with her personal brand of vibrant luxury. She panicked thinking about her followers seeing her in bad lighting without a ring light. The bailiff had to tell her to stop posing for selfies in the witness stand. She insisted that justice is not very chic this season. The whole room watched in shock as she tried to negotiate a sponsorship deal with the defense attorney. 3. A dramatic older woman walked into the courtroom covering her ears like she was under attack. She told the judge that the acoustics of justice were physically hurting her brain. She claimed that courtrooms cause immediate migraines because of the echoey voices bouncing off the walls. She started wincing every time the prosecutor opened his mouth to speak. The bailiff tried to whisper, but she screamed that even whispers sounded like thunder. She demanded soundproof padding or she would pass out from the pain. The judge looked at her bewildered face and realized she was just allergic to accountability. It was a performance worthy of an award. 4. A muscular guy in tight gym clothes stood up immediately after the judge told everyone to take a seat. He started doing lunges in the aisle while everyone stared in total confusion. He claimed he is banned from sitting longer than 20 minutes by his personal trainer. He explained that his glutes would deactivate if he remained stationary for too long. The clerk watched in horror as he began doing squats right next to the defense table. He insisted that justice requires blood flow, and he could not risk losing his gains for a trial. The judge rubbed his temples and realized this man was serious. 5. A quirky girl with crystals hanging from her neck interrupted the selection process with a very serious question. She looked the defendant up and down and refused to proceed without data. She said she refuses to judge anyone without knowing their zodiac sign first. She told the prosecutor that she could not convict a Scorpio because it goes against her spiritual path. The entire jury box looked at her like she was speaking an alien language. She pulled out a star chart and asked the judge for his birth time. The lawyer sighed deeply, knowing he could not argue with astrology. It was absolutely ridiculous. 6. An elderly grandmother clutching a massive handbag stood before the bench with a look of pure innocence. She told the court she really wanted to help, but her hands were tied by a higher power. She claimed she already promised God she would avoid courtrooms for the rest of her life. She explained that she made a pact during a bingo game and could not break it now. The judge tried to explain civic duty, but she just pointed at the ceiling. She said breaking a pinky promise with the Creator was way worse than contempt of court. The room fell silent at her audacity. 7. A sharp businessman in a tailored suit checked his watch and looked incredibly annoyed at the inconvenience. He told the bailiff that his presence here was blocking his abundance energy. He said jury duty interferes with his manifestation cycle and ruins his vibration. He explained that focusing on crime would attract negativity into his life and lower his frequency. The stenographer stopped typing just to roll her eyes at his selfishness. He pulled out a vision board and showed the judge that jail was not on it. The court realized he was too detached from reality to be useful. It was pure delusion. 8. A paranoid uncle wearing dark sunglasses indoors looked around the room with extreme suspicion. He told the court officer that the environment was unsafe for his mental state. He claimed fluorescent lighting scrambles his thoughts and allows the government to read his mind. He started ducking under the table every time a light flickered overhead. The prosecutor asked him to sit up, but he refused to expose his brain to the bulbs. He insisted that the buzzing sound was a coded message sending him orders. The judge stared in disbelief as the man made a tin-foil shield. It was both sad and hilarious. 9. A nervous teenager sat in the jury box shaking with suppressed energy while the judge spoke. The moment the charges were read, he burst into uncontrollable hysterical giggles. He said he cannot stop laughing during serious moments due to a nervous condition. The more serious the crime, the harder he laughed until tears rolled down his face. The victim's family looked over in shock while he tried to cover his mouth. He gasped for air and told the bailiff that murder trials just tickle his funny bone. The judge realized having a hyena in the jury would ruin the case. It was incredibly awkward. 10. A jittery man raised his hand before the proceedings even started to make a very specific demand. He told the court clerk that his bladder was the size of a peanut. He claimed he would need constant bathroom breaks every 15 minutes, or there would be a cleanup on aisle 4. The judge looked at the schedule and realized nothing would ever get done. The man explained he drank 3 gallons of water a day for hydration. Everyone in the room groaned, thinking about the constant interruptions. The bailiff escorted him out before he could ruin the carpet. It was a logistical nightmare. 11. A high-strung corporate guy wiped sweat from his forehead and looked around in panic. He told the judge that his brain shuts down under pressure completely. He said he simply does not understand English when he feels stressed out. The judge asked him a simple question about his home address. The man stared blankly and started speaking absolute gibberish in response. He kept pointing at his ears and shrugging helplessly at the lawyers. He claimed that the stress of the courtroom turned his native language into noise. The bailiff looked at his driver license, which clearly showed he was born in Ohio. The court had to let him go. 12. A festive aunt walked through the metal detectors, dragging a massive rolling suitcase behind her. She told the security guard that she could not enter without her essential medical equipment. She claimed she would bring her emotional support karaoke speaker into the jury box. She explained that singing ballads helps her process complex information and stay calm. The judge watched in horror as she pulled out a microphone and tested the volume. She promised to only sing during the recess breaks, but nobody believed her. The thought of a juror singing Journey during a murder trial was too much. She was escorted out immediately. 13. A bearded hipster with thick glasses crossed his arms and glared at the bench. He announced to the entire room that he could not participate in this archaic ritual. He said he does not trust any system that still uses wooden gavels in this century. He claimed that hitting wood against wood is a sign of primitive behavior. The judge looked at his gavel and then back at the man in confusion. The man insisted that justice should be dispensed with digital buzzers or lasers instead. He refused to respect a court that looked like a carpentry workshop. It was a bizarre stand against tradition. 14. An exhausted father with dark circles under his eyes swayed back and forth. He told the clerk that sitting down was a guaranteed sentence to dreamland. He claimed he would fall asleep instantly unless he was allowed to stand the entire time. He explained that his body has been conditioned to nap the second it hits a chair. The defense attorney watched him dozing off while leaning against the railing. He snored loudly during the opening statement and woke himself up with a jump. The judge realized he could not have a juror standing up like a statue. It was both sad and hilarious to watch. 15. A nervous young man clutched his phone like a lifeline while sweating profusely. He told the court that he lacks the ability to think for himself entirely. He said he refuses to make any decisions without a group vote from his friends. He pulled up his group chat and asked if he should say guilty or innocent. The prosecutor looked horrified that the jury room would effectively include 5 frat boys. He explained that he has never ordered a pizza without polling the squad first. The judge rubbed his face, realizing this generation is doomed. He was dismissed before he could text the verdict. 16. A delicate woman in a floral dress raised a lace handkerchief to her nose. She told the lawyers that she has a very fragile spirit and refined ears. She claimed she would be deeply offended by the harsh nature of legal terminology. She gasped when the prosecutor used the word objection and said it was rude. She insisted that everyone should say please and thank you instead of sustaining things. The stenographer stopped typing to stare at her ridiculous display of sensitivity. The judge explained that crime is not polite, but she refused to listen. It was like she thought she was at a tea party. 17. A controlling mother with a clipboard started organizing the papers on the defense table. She told the judge that the whole concept of a jury was flawed. She said she does not believe strangers should control outcomes for people they do not know. She argued that she should be the only one deciding based on her intuition. The bailiff tried to move her back to the seats, but she resisted. She claimed that random selection is a recipe for disaster and chaos. The courtroom watched in shock as she tried to fire the attorneys. Her need for control made her totally unfit for service. 18. A smug tech guy sat with his tablet ready to fact-check every single word. He told the judge that he does not trust the definitions given in court. He claimed he would Google legal terms mid-trial out of pure confusion and curiosity. He explained that Wikipedia knows more than any law degree holder in the room. The prosecutor warned him that outside research is strictly forbidden for jurors. He laughed and said he could not help his quest for truth on the internet. The judge realized this man would cause a mistrial within an hour. He was sent home to browse the web alone. 19. A chilled-out girl with massive headphones around her neck bopped her head to a beat. She told the bailiff that silence makes her brain feel like static. She said, she absolutely cannot focus on anything without constant lo-fi background music playing. She asked if she could plug her playlist into the court sound system. The defense attorney looked at her like she was out of her mind. She claimed that without a beat drop, she would zone out completely. The judge told her this was a trial, not a study session. Her inability to function in quiet was a deal breaker. 20. An absent-minded uncle scratched his head and looked around with a confused smile. He told the selection committee that his memory is like a sieve with large holes. He claimed he would definitely forget everything discussed the day before by the next morning. He asked the clerk who the defendant was, even though he was sitting right there. He explained that movies are hard for him because he forgets the plot instantly. The lawyers realized they would have to retry the case every single day. The judge dismissed him before he forgot where the exit was. It was a hopeless situation. For justice. 21. A picky middle-aged woman stood at the entrance of the jury box refusing to move. She told the bailiff that she refuses to sit where she cannot choose her own seat. She pointed to the chair closest to the window and demanded it immediately. She explained that her chi gets blocked if she is forced into assigned seating. The judge tried to explain that jurors have specific numbers, but she did not care. She claimed that sitting in row 2 would ruin her posture and her aura. The court watched as she tried to drag a chair from the defense table. It was a display of pure entitlement. 22. A rigid man in a perfectly pressed shirt looked at the schedule with disgust. He told the clerk that this entire process was a personal attack on his lifestyle. He claimed jury duty violates his freedom of routine and disrupts his flow. He explained that he eats exactly 7 almonds at 10 o'clock sharp every day. He insisted that changing his walking route to the courthouse would cause a mental breakdown. The prosecutor looked at him like he was a robot needing a software update. He said the state has no right to alter his lunch hour. The judge realized he was too inflexible to function. 23. A tearful young lady clutched a tissue box and looked at the defendant with pity. She told the judge that her heart was simply too big for this room. She said she would feel morally guilty judging someone even if they stole a car. She claimed that who is she to decide what is right or wrong anyway? She started sobbing loudly when the charges were read out by the prosecutor. She insisted that everyone deserves a second chance, including the guy who robbed a bank. The bailiff handed her more tissues while the lawyers shook their heads. Her empathy was useless for the justice system. 24. An overly friendly woman waved at the defendant like they were old friends meeting for coffee. She told the lawyers that she needs to really know people before making choices. She claimed she would ask personal questions to humanize everyone involved in the trial. She asked the judge if he had any hobbies or if he liked cats. The defense attorney panicked, thinking she would ask about his dating life mid-trial. She explained that she cannot vote without knowing their favorite colors. The courtroom felt like a bad first date instead of a legal proceeding. She was dismissed for being way too invasive. 25. A talkative guy with a loud voice kept interrupting the silence of the courtroom. He told the bailiff that quiet rooms make his skin crawl with anxiety. He said silence longer than 5 minutes makes him uncomfortable, and he has to fill it. He started humming a tune and tapping his foot loudly against the floor. The judge glared at him, but he just started talking about the weather. He claimed that his brain compels him to make noise to feel alive. The other jurors looked ready to strangle him before the trial even started. It was clear he could not handle the courtroom. 26. An artistic teenager sat with a sketchbook, ignoring the instructions completely. He told the court officer that his hands have a mind of their own. He claimed he would doodle the entire time unintentionally on official court documents. He showed the clerk a summons letter that was now covered in drawings of dragons. He explained that he cannot listen without drawing cartoons of the people speaking. The prosecutor worried he would turn the evidence list into a comic book. The judge looked at his ink-stained fingers and sighed. He was sent home to draw somewhere else. It was a very creative escape. 27. A groggy man in pajama pants stumbled into the room looking half dead. He told the judge that asking him to be here at 9 was a crime. He said he simply does not wake up before noon ever under any circumstances. He explained that his circadian rhythm is set to vampire mode permanently. He yawned so wide that his jaw cracked and echoed in the room. He claimed he would be a zombie until lunchtime and miss all the evidence. The bailiff had to poke him just to keep his eyes open. The court realized he was useless before the afternoon. 28. A chaotic young man flipped a coin while sitting in the jury box. He told the lawyers that he hates making hard decisions with his brain. He claimed he would vote randomly if he felt even slightly overwhelmed by facts. He said he might just pick guilty on Tuesdays and innocent on Wednesdays. The defense attorney looked terrified that his client's life hung on a coin toss. He explained that logic is boring and chance is much more exciting. The judge was absolutely furious at his lack of seriousness. He was removed from the panel immediately for being a danger to justice. 29. A rugged man in flannel glared at every single lawyer in the room. He told the judge that his instincts were screaming at him to run away. He said he inherently distrusts anyone wearing a suit because it looks fake. He claimed that a tie is just a leash for the corporate system. He pointed at the prosecutor and said he looked like a used car salesman. The defense attorney tried to smile, but the man just scowled harder. He insisted he could only trust people wearing denim or overalls. The court realized his bias was impossible to overcome. It was ridiculous. 30. A woman with a large tote bag started unpacking granola bars on the bench. She told the bailiff that she runs on a very strict metabolic schedule. She claims she would need snacks every 30 minutes or she becomes a monster. She explained that low blood sugar makes her want to convict everyone in sight. She asked if the judge had a microwave she could use for popcorn. The lawyers watched in horror as she cracked open a soda can loudly. She insisted that justice cannot be served on an empty stomach. She was dismissed to go eat at a buffet instead. 31. A bored construction worker walked into the room looking up at the roof the whole time. He told the judge that he has a serious compulsion involving architecture and geometry. He said he would be completely distracted counting ceiling tiles instead of listening to testimony. He explained that if the numbers do not add up, he panics. The prosecutor tried to get his attention, but he was already on tile 40. He claimed that the grid pattern was more interesting than the opening statements. The bailiff realized he was mentally remodeling the courthouse instead of judging. It was a strange fixation. 32. A defiant college student sat with his arms crossed and no pen in sight. He told the clerk that he was protesting the concept of written records. He claimed he would refuse to take notes because it violates his philosophy of living in the moment. He explained that writing things down ruins the vibe of the experience. The judge handed him a notepad, but he pushed it away like it was poison. He insisted that if it was important, he would remember it spiritually. The lawyers realized he would remember absolutely nothing by lunchtime. He was useless to the court. 33. A gentle yoga instructor smiled warmly at the serial shoplifter sitting at the defense table. She told the court that negative reinforcement is bad for the soul. She said she simply does not believe in punishment of any kind for any reason. She claimed that sending someone to jail disrupts the universal flow of love. The prosecutor asked how she would handle a murderer, and she suggested a hug. She insisted that everyone just needs a good stretch and some herbal tea. The The judge rubbed his forehead, realizing she would let everyone walk free. It was sweet, but legally impossible. 34. A lonely woman stared at the defendant with hard eyes and a shy smile. She told the bailiff that she falls in love way too easily with strangers. She claimed she would get emotionally attached to the defendant within the first hour of trial. She explained that his mugshot looked just like her high school prom date. The defense attorney looked uncomfortable as she started doodling Mrs., followed by his last name. She insisted that she could fix him if given the chance. The judge realized this was a dating show for her, not a trial. It was horrifyingly awkward. 35. A grumpy uncle in a trucker hat stood up while the judge was talking. He told the officer that he has a problem with authority figures controlling his voice. He said he does not like being told when to speak or remain silent. He claimed that his freedom of speech applies 24/7 without pause. The judge slammed the gavel, but the man just talked louder over the noise. He insisted that he would interrupt whenever a thought popped into his head. The room went silent as he argued with the federal government. It was a total power struggle. 36. A confused grandma adjusted her hearing aid and looked completely lost in the sauce. She told the clerk that words just float right through her head like clouds. She claimed she would struggle following spoken instructions unless they were sung to her. She explained that her brain processes voice commands like a broken radio signal. The prosecutor asked her to raise her right hand, and she lifted her left foot. She insisted that everything sounded like underwater bubbling noises to her. The judge realized giving her legal directions would be a comedy of errors. It was impossible to proceed. 37. A trembling young man hid inside his oversized hoodie, pulling the strings tight. He told the bailiff that high-stakes situations make him reboot like a computer. He said he would feel pressured and shut down completely if asked to decide anything. He claimed that even choosing a sandwich makes him hyperventilate for an hour. The defense attorney watched as the man slowly curled into a ball on the bench. He insisted that the weight of justice would crush his fragile spirit instantly. The judge saw him rocking back and forth and showed mercy. He was sent home to recover. 38. A skeptical librarian peered over her spectacles at the judge with intense scrutiny. She told the court that she has a pathological need to verify sources. She claimed she would question the judge constantly about his credentials and his logic. She explained that she does not just accept authority without a bibliography. The prosecutor tried to speak, but she interrupted to ask for his law school transcript. She insisted that she needed to audit the entire judicial process personally. The judge realized he was on trial in her mind and not the defendant. It was exhausting for everyone involved. 39. An energetic sales rep tapped his pen rapidly against the wooden railing. He told the lawyers that he has the attention span of a goldfish. He said he would lose interest immediately if the proceedings felt even slightly repetitive. He claimed that hearing the same evidence twice would make him walk out. The defense attorney explained that trials involve a lot of reviewing facts. The man groaned and checked his phone for entertainment. He insisted that if the trial was not edited like a movie, he was out. The court realized he could not handle the boredom of real life. 40. A graphic designer squinted at the text-heavy documents with pure disgust. He told the judge that he is exclusively a visual learner. He claimed he does not process information without visuals like charts or colorful infographics. He explained that plain text looks like code to him and means nothing. The prosecutor tried to read a statement, but the man demanded a PowerPoint presentation. He insisted that justice needs better font choices and more pie charts to be valid. The judge rubbed his eyes, realizing this man needed a picture book. It was a demand for design over truth. 41. A confused bodybuilder scratched his head and looked at the judge. With wide eyes, he told the court that the vocabulary being used was way above his pay grade. He said he would need explanations in much simpler words for everything. He claimed that words with more than 2 syllables make his brain hurt physically. The prosecutor used the word affidavit, and the man looked like he saw a ghost. He asked if they could use emojis instead of legal terms to communicate. The judge sighed and realized he could not translate the law into toddler speak. He was dismissed for being unable to comprehend basic sentences. 42. A stubborn young woman crossed her arms and glared at the state seal on the wall. She told the bailiff that she refuses to participate in a rigged game. She claims she does not respect any rules that she did not help write personally. She explained that if she was not in the legislative meeting, she is not following the law. The judge tried to explain how society works, but she just rolled her eyes. She insisted that her consent was required for every single statute in the book. The court realized she was ungovernable and a total liability. She was escorted out while shouting about her rights. 43. A bubbly girl in a bright yellow dress looked around the gloomy room with fear. She told the clerk that the vibe in here was way too heavy for her. She said she would feel totally overwhelmed by the legal seriousness of the situation. She claimed that she needs laughter and joy to function properly as a human. She started hyperventilating when the judge put on his black robe because it looked scary. She asked if they could maybe play some party games to lighten the mood. The lawyers stared at her in disbelief. The judge realized she would cry if someone frowned. She was sent home. 44. An overly curious retired teacher sat on the edge of her seat with a raised hand. She told the lawyers that she has a very bad habit she cannot control. She claimed she would accidentally interrupt the trial constantly to clarify small details. She explained that if she does not understand a specific word, she has to ask immediately. The prosecutor tried to speak, but she jumped in to ask where he got his tie. She insisted that her curiosity overrides her manners every single time. The judge realized the trial would take 10 years with her on the jury. It was a scheduling disaster waiting to happen. 45. A moody teenager with dyed hair looked at the prosecutor with deep suspicion. He told the judge that facts do not really matter to him at all. He said he would base his entire legal opinion solely on the tone of voice used. He claimed that if a lawyer sounds too bossy, he will vote against them instantly. He explained that bad vibes are more important than actual DNA evidence. The defense attorney tried to speak softly, but the kid just narrowed his eyes. The court realized he was judging their vocal cords, not the crime. He was dismissed for being completely irrational and biased. 46. A shy woman in a gigantic trench coat tried to hide behind the person next to her. She told the bailiff that she has a severe phobia of being perceived. She claimed she would feel incredibly anxious being watched by the people in the gallery. She explained that feeling eyes on her makes her want to crawl under a rock. She asked if she could sit inside a cardboard box during the trial. The judge looked at her trembling hands and realized she was serious. The lawyers knew she would focus on hiding rather than the case. She was allowed to leave and disappear. 47. A scatterbrained man introduced himself to the bailiff 3 times in 5 minutes. He told the court that his brain is like a freshly wiped hard drive. He said he would struggle remembering names and faces of the witnesses involved. He claimed that everyone in the room looked exactly the same to him. He asked the prosecutor who he was again, right after he finished speaking. The defense attorney realized this man would not remember the defendant by lunchtime. The judge saw the blank look in his eyes and knew it was hopeless. He was sent home before he forgot where he lived. 48. An insecure young man looked at the judge with puppy dog eyes, begging for approval. He told the clerk that he cannot make choices without a pat on the back. He claimed he would need frequent reassurance that he was doing a good job. He asked the bailiff if he was sitting in the chair correctly. He explained that without constant praise, he spirals into self-doubt. The prosecutor realized he would have to babysit this juror for weeks. The judge rubbed his temples, knowing he is not a therapist. The man was dismissed because the court had no time for compliments. 49. A lazy-looking guy in sweatpants handed the clerk a crumbled piece of paper. He did not even speak to the judge, but just pointed at the note. He wrote a single sentence that summed up his entire existence perfectly. "Please excuse me as I'm not built for responsibility." He claimed that making decisions gave him hives and made him tired. He explained that he still calls his mom to schedule his dentist appointments. The whole courtroom looked at him with a mix of pity and amusement. The judge actually laughed and agreed that he was unfit. He walked out free from adulthood. Well, folks, there you have it. The absolute best of the worst attempts to dodge civic duty. It is honestly terrifying that these people walk among us and drive cars. If your brain feels like it just melted from the stupidity, then you are definitely in the right place here at BrainFumble. Do us a huge favor and smash that like button if you laughed at the sheer audacity of these people. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the chaos. Now we want to hear from you. What is the wildest excuse you have ever used to get out of work? Let us know in the comments down below.